How are we liking 6 so far? Seattle Interactive is good? All right, awesome. My name is Shannon O'Donald, and I am a strategist at Crown Social. We are a social media agency. You can see that's my Twitter handle, so if you want to quote me, go ahead and use that. I'll retweet you after, I promise. Gotta grab my clicker here. How many of you have heard of Crown Social? Show hands. Okay, wow, a lot of people. Sweet. So we're very social. We're a social media agency, so please tweet at us. Come introduce yourself if you are interested in social media or design, or you have a need for a social media agency. Introduce yourself to me afterwards. Everything that I need to know about social media, I learned as a bartender. How many of you have ever been a bartender? Okay, so maybe like 30%, 20%. How many of you have ever been to a bar? Okay, so we all have the appropriate context for understanding this metaphor. Social media marketers are the bartenders of brands, because we get to drink at work. Just kidding, don't drink and tweet, that's like the cardinal rule. Let's think about what goes into a bar. There's the entrepreneur who has the idea to build the bar, the architect who designs the bar, and a designer who selects the decor and helps create the ambiance, a manager and a buyer who figure out the menu, figure out what liquors to stock, and then there's the bartender. And no matter how much work goes into all the other aspects of creating a bar, the entire brand experience is distilled down through that one individual, and that's the bartender. Let me give you an example. Actually, I'm not going to give you an example yet. So we really are, as marketers, the bartenders of brands. And that's because the attitude that we have will set the tone of the entire interaction that the customer will have with our brand. And how well we serve people will impact their customer journey. And we're also the ones who are behind the scenes making all the content. We're the ones crafting the cocktails. And here's that example I was telling you about. A couple years ago, I found myself on a plane, sitting on the tarmac, trying to make my connection, and I had like 20 minutes. And we're not pulling up to the gate, I don't know, some reason. I'm sitting there nervously, like hoping I'm gonna make my connection, kind of panicking, checking the app, my flight is boarding. And so I tweeted at Delta, and I was like, please, please hold my plane for me. And they got back to me right away, and we had a little exchange in DM. They ended up keeping the boarding door open for me, so I didn't miss my connecting flight. And that is one of, if not the most impactful experiences I've had with a Delta brand. And why would that be? Because if you think about it, like I've had hundreds, if not thousands of experiences with the Delta brand. I've been on the app a bunch of times. I've searched for countless flights that I've probably never booked, but just dreamingly like looked at the flight. I've interacted with their flight attendants. I've called their customer service reps. I've had thousands of their cookies, which are delicious. So why was this one exchange the most impactful experience I've had with this brand? And I think the reason is because on social media, a brand is able to act as a person. Usually it's the other way around. Usually it's a person acting on behalf of a brand. And we as consumers cannot understand that difference. We can understand that if a flight attendant is short with us, it's probably because they're having a bad day and maybe they were up all night on an overseas flight. So even though we know that that person is acting on behalf of the brand, it doesn't have as big of an impact because it's not the actual brand. So when a brand can act like a person, we need to seriously think about the kind of customer service experiences we're delivering as brands. So to be excellent social media marketers, we need to improve our bartending skills. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. When you're a bartender, you have to know how to adopt the bartending attitude. You're there to help people have a good time. You have to roll with the punches and learn how to kind of clean up messy situations and also how to make people happy, make them feel good where they are. And what that means for social media marketers is we have to learn how to distill our brand values through our attitude, through our social content. When you're a bartender, you have to ace customer service. Your livelihood depends on it. And as marketers, we need to build our social media identities to be action-oriented. And then, of course, you have to know how to make good drinks. So if we're the one crafting the cocktails, we need to think about how we can craft content that's experience-centric. So first up, distilling brand values through social media. What are your brand values? I always say it's important to have a goal because if you don't have the goal, you won't know if you've succeeded or failed. Same with brand values. Do you know what they are? What is your mission statement? What principles guide your work? And how will your values determine who you are as a brand? How will it define your unique brand identity? Because believe it or not, it's our values that will differentiate us on social media. So how do these values manifest? It's either through what we say or what we do. And if you'll notice, there's a lot more in the what we can do column than in the what we can say column. Brands are so often using social media as a broadcasting tool. They're treating it like television or like print or a billboard ad. And they're forgetting that there's all these other features available to us, all these other things that we can also do. So much more than just broadcast. Here's an example of a client of ours, Bartell Drugs. And here's how we demonstrate our brand value through what we say. Our brand value, in this case, is being proud of being Washington's own drugstore. So we have content that features Washington. We have content that features history. But that's just what we say. We also back up our brand value with what we do. So sometimes that means jumping in on trending hashtags and sharing something with a uniquely Seattle perspective, like National Thrift Store Day and giving a shout out to Macklemore. Sometimes that means engaging with content that our community is sharing, engaging with stuff that's relevant where our community might care about it. And sometimes that means connecting with other brands and tagging them in posts and reaching out and not just experiencing things in a vacuum. So speaking about taking action, how do we build action-oriented identities on social media? Actions speak louder than words. Literally everyone says this, and I'm a millennial, so I had to throw the word literally into my presentation. And it's true. We all know this to be true. And so we get so focused on content sometimes and focused on what we're going to say that we forget that we're not even using most of the features of social media. So how can we be good bartenders? When you're a bartender, one of the first things I learned, at least, was that there's a lot of power when you learn someone's name. First of all, it helps you keep track of their tab. so you can make sure that you actually charge them for all the drinks you serve them. But there's something special that happens when you learn their name, and you use their name. Don't just learn it for your sake. Let them know that you know who they are. When you do this, when you say, "Thank you, Stephanie," then they know that you know them, and that's a really great first step into building a long-term relationship. As social media marketers, we need to invest in tools that have social CRM, customer relationship management capabilities. Here are a few. My team uses Sprout Social, but what these CRM tools allow us to do is not just see tweets and Facebook messages and Instagram messages and comments coming in on the one-off basis. It allows you to look at interactions over time with individuals. And when you're able to track a relationship from onset and forward, you're able to really learn how to best spend your time with your customers. It allows you to keep tabs on people. Trolls are a really big problem in social media, but they're not as big of a problem as we like to think. It's really easy when you're on the customer service front lines to write off every negative comment and every negative mention as someone just being a troll. But if Delta had written me off as being a troll, then I wouldn't be telling you all about how important this is. So when you're able to track that relationship from beginning to end, you're able to sort of see, okay, you know what, this person really is a troll, and I'm going to stop investing in that relationship. You can shut it down. You can also see who's engaging with you, and you can engage back. Don't just sit there and post content and wait for everybody to like what you're doing. Go out and like what they're doing too. You want them to be a part of your community, you should also consider being a part of theirs. And if you have superfans, do something special with them. That's paying extra attention to your regulars. When you know their name, and they know you know their name, and they come in night after night, whether it's a busy night or a dead night, you're gonna have a steady income of tips, because that person who knows you and they know you know them, they'll always order from you. And they'll also feel more accountable for their actions with you, because they're not gonna not tip their favorite bartender. You know, they're just gonna keep engaging with that relationship. So we need to think about how we can really elevate the experience and have to acknowledge people, engage with them, and then roll out programs that can activate potential superfans. Microsoft, a couple of years ago, realized that they had a community that was really vocal about Windows. They were commenting on forums and on social media, and they were saying things that didn't work, things they didn't like, and it was just a digital marketer's headache. Because here you have all these brand mentions that are negative, that you don't really know what to do with. So they actually created a program. And then social media communities that support that program. And that program, since its launch, has allowed Microsoft to connect with over 7 million people that now give them feedback and test their products before launch. All because they said, we're getting all of this great feedback, but we have no appropriate feedback loop for them. So what they did was they took a digital marketing headache and they translated it into a business asset. We need to anticipate our customers' needs. Another little bartending trick. When a table of people walks in, they sit down, you look for that person that's drinking just a little bit faster than everyone else, and you wait till they have like this much left in their drink, and you go up to them and you say, hey, do you want another drink, just to them? And everyone else is still locked in conversation, they're still chatting, and they're not paying attention, and so the person who you ask, they'll say, yeah, sure, give me another drink. Bring them their drink, and then all their friends finish their drink, and they're like, well, we need another because their drink is full. And you create this cycle that locks people in. It sounds like some of you have been in this cycle what you want, because that's how you make money. But what happens if you don't do that? First person finishes their drink. Maybe the second person finishes their drink. The question then becomes, what do we want to do? Do we want to stay here? Do we want to go elsewhere? Maybe we try to step out down the street. And it's the same for social media marketers. Situations will generate a customer need. So think about the situations that your customers will find themselves in. Think about how marketing can address that need. So often, we think that our products address needs. And we kind of discredit ourselves as marketers because our products can only address their need if people know about the product. And we know that people can't just see a product and know that it will solve their problem. They need to be aware of the product. They need to consider the product. They need to have a chance to know that they even want to buy the product. So marketing really can address their needs if we gear our content that way. And we need to deliver that content before they seek it out. And that is crucial. Here's another Bartell Drugs example. Last week, before the major storm of the century that knocked over a few lawn chairs, Bartell Drugs proactively shared this emergency preparedness list. Checklist for people. We shared it on social. A lot of other people also shared it from their personal pages and their personal Twitters. And it was there before people sought that content out, and that's why it succeeded. So, speaking of content, we need to create experience-centric content. First and foremost, remember why people are here. We're all on social media. We all have I think most of us who are in this room have our own personal platforms. We all have probably multiple social media profiles, and we'll use each of them in different ways. And the way that we as individuals use social media might be very different than the way that our friends use that same platform. It's kind of like multiple different bars. There's one bar that you go to because you want to have a quiet, intimate conversation and you know that you really like their food. There's another bar you want to go to because it's loud and there's great music and you just want to dance. So think about why they're on that platform and what they might be doing there, and know that it's not going to be the same for every single customer. Also, remember, being on social media is an activity. TV is passive, could be on in the background. Print ads are passive. They could flip through them or drive by them on a billboard. But social media is different. We're actively on Facebook. We're actively scrolling. We're actively looking at content. So remember that people are already engaged in an activity when they're on social media. And keep that context in mind. Google has this philosophy of the customer journey, and it's very simple. See, think, do, care. So we really should be thinking about creating content that's centered around the different steps of this journey. And if we keep context in mind, that stage, the do stage, the purchase stage, is almost never where our customers are when they're on social media, simply because they're already engaged with the activity of being on social media. They're not on your website. They're not ready to click the buy button. But they might be at the C stage. They might learn about your product. 80% of Instagram users have learned about a new brand or product on Instagram. They might be at the think stage. They might be considering your product, and seeing your content over and over keeps you top of mind. Or they might already be a member of your community, and they care about your brand, and they want to continue being connected with their brand, and social media is an easy way for them to do that. So when we're creating content, we need to think about at what point in the customer journey will our messages be contextually relevant to the people that we're showing them to. So I'm a bit of a social media data junkie. I love to dive into spreadsheets, It's one of my favorite things. And I could do an entire separate presentation on social metrics alone. But not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And what I'm talking about today is something that's not very easy to measure. It's very difficult to measure. It's very difficult to evaluate. It's even very difficult to track and remember the things that we do. But that doesn't mean it's not important. Our world is becoming more and more data-driven. Think about education. It's all driven by standardized tests. We're constantly being pushed to justify our decisions with validated data. And this world is only going to get more and more data-rich and more data-savvy. But we're in a very unique time because customer service and customer operations is naturally migrating to social media. It's not something that somebody is driving. Consumers are driving it, perhaps because, well, it gives them more power. There's accountability on social media that brands don't have to think about in areas that are shrouded and behind closed doors. But creating a wonderful customer experience in a one-to-one interaction is really difficult to scale. When you're a bartender, there's one patron, one bartender, and a finite number of drinks that you can make in a shift. That's an easy model. When there's a multitude of customers that can reach out to your brand and bombard you with messages, it becomes very difficult. Anyone who's tried to call Comcast customer service knows that good customer experience is very difficult to scale when we're dealing with a lot of messages. But we're in this unique time where if we do figure out how to scale this, if we do figure out how to deliver excellent customer experiences on social media, then we'll differentiate ourselves as brands, and we'll earn the loyalty of the next generation of consumers. Every good bartender has to close out their tabs. So evaluate your actions qualitatively. Think about what actions you're actually taking, and keep track of them, and ask yourself, is my brand value being represented through this action? What could we have done differently? Track your relationships and nurture them. Your brand superfans aren't gonna come out of the woodwork and raise their hand and say, hello, I'm a superfan, I'd like to share your brand's content on social media, can you roll out a special program for me? No. We have to be the ones to take the first step. We have to be the ones to plant the seed, and we have to nurture that relationship. So we have to be able to track it if we want it to go anywhere. And then we have to make our content so it's aligned with the customer journey. I'll leave you with this. I've learned that people will forget what you said, and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And in social media, people will forget what we said and did even faster than any other area. Can anyone remember the last 10 things they liked on social media? Case in point. So maybe it's time that we as marketers start placing a little bit more emphasis on how we make people feel. Thank you.